All right, everybody, welcome back again to the Boom, Buck, and Blue podcast. Today on my end, it is just me because I ditched Ryan because he is just a helpless piece of shit. That's a lie. I didn't ditch him. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it this week because I am going to Germany for work on Saturday. And been just getting ready for that. And Ryan's been traveling yesterday and today, so just schedules weren't matching up, and so I wasn't planning on doing it. Just gonna let Jimmy take it, and then today I was sitting there and looking around on social media, and I just started seeing OU Texas video after OU Texas video, and I started getting fired up and amped. I was like, man, I got it. Like, I can't talk a little bit on the podcast about OU Texas, at least. So I was going to get on here and thought about just giving a good old big fuck Texas and then signing off and letting Jimmy take it. But I guess you guys deserve a little bit more than that from me. So going to go over a little bit so far about what we've seen in the college football season. And then talk a little bit about Penn State and Ohio State and Oklahoma, what I've seen from Oklahoma, and then the OU Texas game, and then I'll talk about the Penn State Iowa game a little bit, and then we will go into our pick'ems. I'm not going to go into NFL today, just because that's kind of more Ryan's realm, and he enjoys that a little bit more than I do. So since he's not here, I'm just going to kind of stick to college football because that's my forte. And then I'll also leave points spots in here, and Jimmy's going to give his points for his thoughts too. So far, the college football season. I mean, this one, it literally just seems every week gets just crazier and crazier and crazier. I forgot what the exact number is. I think we're 5 weeks in, 5.5 if you count week 0. And I think it's like through 5.5 weeks, 34 top 25 teams have lost already this season. Granted, some of those are top 25 versus top 25, but still, I mean, that's an average of 5 or 6 a week losing, which is just absurd, and it is what makes this game fun. That's why we like it. And also, we're going to sit here and talk about the Alabamas and the Georgias and Penn States and Oklahomas and college football playoff and everybody else's too. But right now, the way this season's going, I have no earthly idea what's going to happen. A lot of people are talking about Alabama and Georgia and how they're a tier ahead of everybody else. And don't get me wrong, they look good. I'm not saying they don't. But do they look so good that I think that, no way in hell could Oklahoma figure it out and play them? No, I don't think that. I think Ohio State, if they could get a little bit of defense, their offense is good enough that they can give them problems. Penn State's a well-rounded team. They can give them issues. Excuse me, sorry. There's teams out there that can beat them. Cincinnati, shit. I mean, they're non-Power 5, and we'll see what they're made of. But I mean, they just played Notre Dame, and I don't think Notre Dame is what they have been the last 3 seasons or so. But I do think they're a pretty darn good football team still. And Cincinnati, they manhandled them. I know, looking at the score, it didn't look like it as much at a 24-13 game. But, I mean, it was 17-0 in the second quarter. And then the Notre Dame kind of bitched and clawed and fought their way back into the game to make it 17-13. And then Cincinnati scored there at the end to end up making it 24-13. But, I mean, watching that game, like Cincinnati, they looked like a Power 5 team. And what I mean by that is in the trenches. Like sometimes, when you see these Power 5 teams or play these non-power five teams. Like I'm going to use one for example, even much as I hate it. The OU Boise State game, the Fiesta Bowl with the Statue of Liberty. I mean, Boise State did beat Oklahoma, but they didn't beat them by lining up and ramming it down their throats and dominating the offensive line. They had some trickery. They were running outside plays. They were running crazy plays, sweeps, reverses, all that stuff. And a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times when the group of five plays a power five, that's what you kind of expect to happen for them to beat a team like that, just because they're just outmatched. That was not the case in Cincinnati, Notre Dame. Cincinnati's offensive line dominated Notre Dame. Notre Dame's defensive line did not do that great against Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's a team that, on any given night could give anybody a run for their money, including Alabama and Georgia. Desmond Ridder is real deal. That kid is good. 6'4", 220 quarterback, can throw the ball great, can move. He is good enough to keep them in any game. So interested to see what happens with them. I mean, they're undefeated. The rest of their schedule is not too tough. They do have to play SMU, I think, last game of the season, I think. But if not, it's the last game. It's towards the end. I know SMU is not a massive powerhouse by any means, but they're not a bad team. They're top 25 right now. They got a great offense led by ex-OU quarterback Tanner Mordecai. If they go undefeated, who knows? They could definitely get into the college football playoff. So lots of interesting things going to happen moving forward. We're really excited to see what's going to happen. Moving on to kind of our teams. First, we'll hit on Ohio State. Jim, why don't you go ahead and give us your thoughts on Ohio State?
Thank you, Ross, for that very glowing introduction. I appreciate it. It's Jimmy. I'm back here from an undisclosed location in Southwest Asia. Going to go ahead and give you my thoughts on Ohio State. One thing that Ross said about C.J. Stroud, the quarterback, I just want to start off right with that one, is he's a good, not great quarterback. And I can't argue with him just because he was not playing. I don't know. He was making strange decisions the first couple weeks of play. You can talk about his accuracy. His accuracy wasn't great. It was still over 60%, which is, it's okay. It's not great. He was limiting his interceptions compared to his touchdowns. He was getting a gang of yards, almost 500 yards against Tulsa. But he was still making strange decisions. There was a lot of times where it'd be a read play option where the opposing defense would exactly know, okay, we just completely bear down on the running back because we know he's not going to take the ball because he doesn't take the ball. Well, against Rutgers, he actually held the ball. He was playing with a sense of purpose, right? And he was making really decisive moves. He actually pulled the ball. He ran the ball a couple times. And they're actually about and to be honest with you, all of that is against a pretty good Rutgers defense, right? After Saturday, even after giving up, I think it was 53 points, they're still only averaging 21 points a game. And the week prior, they kept our rivals up north scoreless in the second half. So you can't look at that Rutgers team and be like, oh, yeah, it's only Rutgers. Because, this is what I said. What I said was anybody who said that this game's going to be close because they either just don't like Ohio State or they actually thought Rutgers was a actually good team cannot say after the fact, oh, it was just Rutgers. I'm willing to say, yeah, it's just Rutgers. They can't score. They're not a really good scoring. They're a bad offense. Objectively, they're a bad offense. But on defense, they're pretty darn good. Like I said, after last week, they've still only given up 21 points a game on average, right? That being said, with C.J. Stroud, who had a great game, I think he had 5 touchdowns. There are 3 throws in particular that show me he could be pretty special at some point. There's one throw to the right. Jackson Smith-Njigba was going on a wheel route, and he was covered closely, not completely covered, but closely, and Stroud put it right on a dime, right in his hands, to where the defender couldn't touch it. Jackson Smith-Njigba did not break his stride, and it was just a beautiful throw. The other one was he was avoiding a sack. I believe one of the defensive tackles, if not the end on the left side, got through. Um, got his hands on him, but he get him down. He rolled out to the left to Olave, who was able to break it for a 56-yard touchdown. Getting that ball on and short yardage to your playmakers, right? He's surrounded by playmakers. I think that's where Ross is coming from when he says he's just a good quarterback, right? Because he doesn't need to do a whole lot. He just needs to protect the ball and get the ball to his playmakers. And he did that against, like I said, a pretty good Rutgers defense. And his last one was there was a lot of questions regarding whether his toughness or not, because he wouldn't tuck the ball and run. Well, I already said he ran a couple times in this game, but there was a play in particular, and this is the third throw I'm talking about. He's standing in the pocket, and he is a pocket guy. He's standing in the pocket. Pressure's coming from the left, and he stands in the pocket, knows it's coming, knows he's going to get hit, still able to get the ball to Jeremy Ruckert up the middle, who then took it in for a touchdown. Right, getting the ball into the hands of your playmakers despite you knowing that you're going to get slammed. And he did get slammed. However, still got the ball out and got it out well. Oh, and by the way, shout out to Chris Olave, who is now tied with Chris Carter for career touchdowns at Ohio State and is very likely going to be passing him. And that's nothing to scoff at. Chris Carter was he's a Hall of Famer. He's Chris Carter. Come on. In terms of the rest of the offense, I talked about the wide receivers. I talked about C.J. Stroud. Ross said enough for him. I'm just going to say his name, Travion Henderson. Enough said. Kid's a future star. Now, the one onto the other side of the ball, the issues that all of us who have been paying attention and all of us Ohio State fans have had on defense. Now, they have played much better over the past 2 weeks. I'm not willing to say that they're hitting their stride or anything along those lines yet, because it was against two very bad offenses in Akron and Rutgers. And this week they're going up against Maryland. It's going to be the best passing offense they faced all season. In terms of scoring, it's the second. I believe they're second behind behind Oregon. Oregon is leading Maryland in scoring per game at 35 points, and Maryland's at like 32. So it's close, but it's not like that much of a difference. But still, a better offense than they faced over the past 2 weeks. There are some things I did like about the defense this week. Just eye test stuff. It looks like they're playing with a little bit more knowledge. They don't look ill-prepared like they did the first 3 weeks. I should say the first 2 weeks. Guys are making plays. Ronnie Hickman is an absolute monster. I brought him up before. A lot of younger guys are making plays. Denzel Burke, who's a true freshman, who's out there playing and making interceptions, making turnovers, and it feels like they've got the personnel they need to move forward. Again, I don't want to call them. I'm on the verge of not even calling them a good defense. I still can't call them a good defense. But I do see some things, and the way I said it in the chat the other day was there are some things in there that I see light at the end of the tunnel. Things that could possibly mean a good defense for next year, which comes along with experience and getting some people back. I believe Sevyn Banks is going to be back this week. And he was a guy that a lot of people had high on draft boards coming out of into the draft next year. So we'll see. Definitely this week we're going to see. We've seen what Maryland's offense can do against a great defense in Iowa, and I'll talk about them a little bit later. But I do have one stat that, surprise, surprise, Ohio State is actually leading the nation on defense. I know, right? Shocker. Absolute shocker. No, that is a shocker because Ohio State's defense is bad this year. And I'm kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here a little bit, and Ryan called me out on it earlier. And 100%, I'm scraping the bottom barrel. I don't care. Trying to find some gems in this pile of crap, right? But anyway, I'm going to kind of go bad news bears a little bit as well. Currently, right now, Ohio State is ranked number one in the nation in transitioning turnovers from into touchdowns. Right now, Ohio State has 5 touchdowns off of turnovers. One was a swoop and score on a forced fumble, and the other 4 are interceptions. 4 interceptions and 5 touchdowns overall. And those 4 interceptions returned for a touchdown over the past 2 weeks. Again, like I said, tiny little pinprick of a light that I see down at the end of the tunnel that I think can actually mean something. And that's it. That's all I got this week. I can't really say, I can't give like, I think this or I think this for sure. Because there's a lot of the things that, I already brought up that are for sure's, right? Travion Henderson is obviously a star. There's no doubt about that. Ohio State's offense is, in my opinion, the best in the country. Right now, they lead the entire country in average, and I think they're number 2 in points scored behind Pitt, which is weird. I think it's because they put 76 up on Ross's alma mater. Hey, go Bees? What are they? Bees? Whatever. I don't know. It's Georgia Tech, by the way, and they stink. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I got for Ohio State this week. I'll go over OU and Iowa in my picks.
All right, so kind of my quick thoughts on Ohio State, and then obviously Jimmy kind of probably took majority of the time, like his time talking about that. So, but I just think quarterback's good, not great, but good. Weapons around him are fantastic. I have been saying it. It's not like a huge surprise or anything like that, but I've been saying it since week 1 when I saw him play in that Minnesota game. Henderson is. I mean, he's a freshman. He might be the best running back in the country. I mean, that kid is freaking good and explosive. They need to find the ways to get him the ball. And obviously on the outside, we know about their weapons. Their defense is an issue. I'm not about to say they're not. But, I mean, okay, I'm about to make this comparison, but let me do it wrong. It's not exactly the same. Like the Oklahoma teams with Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield, that were, like, if you go look at the numbers and that they put up, were just historically fantastic. Like, they're historically great. Like, they're top 2 offenses at the time, like per play, most yards. And their defenses are bad. And they still made the college football playoff. Granted, they lost, but I mean, it was good enough to get them there. Now, I say that OU's defenses were fucking god awful. Ohio State's defense is bad, but it's not as bad as Oklahoma's were. Don't get me wrong; they're still better than that. So, with the offense they have, I do think. Still looking at stuff. Don't get me wrong. I think Iowa's a good team. I think Penn State's a really good team. But right now, from what I see, I still think I still got Ohio State winning the Big Ten and winning out. And the main reason behind that is I just don't think anybody on their schedule, including Penn State, which is probably going to be the closest thing they have, but I don't think anybody really on their schedule can score enough points to beat Ohio State, because Ohio State is going to put up a 45 spot every damn game because they got that many weapons. And so to beat them, you're going to have to score 48, 52, something like that. And I just don't know if any other team in the Big Ten really has the firepower to do that. Closest thing is going to be Penn State. And don't get me wrong, they got some great weapons on the outside. I've talked about it before, and I'll say it again. Johan Dotson is one of my most favorite wide receivers to watch this season. And Parker Washington is great as well. And Sean Clifford is playing light. I don't want to say lights out because lights out would be like 6 touchdowns every game. But I mean, he's playing great. He's playing 10 times better than I thought he was going to play this year, and that's why Penn State's ranked 4th in the country. Still, with that, I mean, to do this, do I think Sean Clifford could run and pass for 5 or 6 touchdowns in a game? No, because that's probably what's going to take to beat Ohio State, and I don't see it happening. Not saying he can't, I just don't see it happening. And then, I mean, who else? I mean, Michigan, their offense has been very run-based, and don't get me wrong, they've been playing pretty well of late. But, again, do I see Michigan running for 6 or 7 touchdowns? No, I don't. So, yes, and for that reason, I've got Ohio State still winning the Big Ten as of right now. And until I can see anybody that wants to start putting up points like that, then it's probably going to stay that way in my mind. So, we'll see what happens. They got a Maryland this week who got beat up pretty bad against Iowa, and they're probably going to be a little mad and might put up a little bit of a fight, but, I mean, October 30th, that's when they play Penn State. Until then, they play Maryland, they play Indiana. So it's going to be, I don't want to say cakewalk because they are Power 5 teams, but Ohio State's pretty much going to roll until Penn State, and then we'll see what happens. Then next after that, Penn State. Going to that, talking about a big game. Penn State, Iowa this week. Going to get a little bit more into like the game itself. For the picks, because shocker, this is one of our college football pick'em this week. But Penn State has looked really, really good at times. I'm still a little perplexed about the running game. Was better last week against Indiana. And, I mean, Indiana was a team that Jimmy and I talked about at the beginning of the season. We did not think they were going to be what they were last year, and they're not even close to what they are. But they're still a Power 5 team, and Penn State shut them out. To keep any team off the scoreboard completely is impressive. To keep a Power 5 team off the scoreboard, that means they didn't even let them into field goal range. Or close field goal range. I guess they could have missed one, but I'm not sure. But, I mean, that's great on Penn State's defense. Their defense is going to win them a lot of football games by themselves. I mean, the offense is doing very well. Sean Clifford is just – I mean, he's throwing the ball well. He's like – looking at it, 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Seems to be making good throws, good decisions. A lot of that has to do, like we talked about before, with Mike Yurcich and the offense they run. This week's going to be a very interesting test for him. Iowa this year has been notorious for causing turnovers, especially interceptions. I mean, if you watched the Maryland game last week, they just ripped Tulia Tagovailoa to shreds. So it's going to be interesting to see how Sean Clifford handles that and if he could continue to make good decisions or if Iowa's defense is going to be able to cause him any problems. And ultimately, I think that's going to be the main part of the game. Iowa's offense is not great. They're not bad, but they're not that good. They're just kind of okay, whatever. Like, nothing on their team scares me on offense. So it's going to come down to can Iowa force turnovers by Penn State, most specifically interceptions by Sean Clifford, make bad decisions, and then put their offense into short field situations when they're getting the ball on Penn State's 30-yard line, 35 in Penn State's territory, and then because Penn State's defense is great. And don't get me wrong, I think they'll hold up very, very well. But if you do that enough times, they're going to at least crack a couple times just because it's just hard for a defense to do that over and over and over. So I think that's going to kind of be the name of the game. And I'll get a little, like I said, talk a little bit more about that when we get to our picks. But yeah, it's going to be a great game. Very interesting. One of the highlight games of the year so far. And I mean, beginning of the season, if you had told me Penn State, Iowa, I mean, we knew it was going to be a good game just because we knew both teams were going to be pretty decent. But at no point ever did I think it was going to be, two top 5 teams squaring off for kind of the name of number one in the Big Ten. So looking forward to that game. My Oklahoma Sooners. Okay, so I'm going to get into the game itself here in a second. Want to talk a little bit about Oklahoma last week, played K-State. The offense looked a lot better. Our offensive line blocked well. So offensive line has been an issue for us, and we actually blocked very well last game. Ran the ball well. Finally, we decided to get the ball to Kennedy Brooks, who is, I think he's just his running style is better suited for this offensive line than Eric Gray. Kennedy Brooks is kind of the one cut, stick his foot in the ground and go up and run with power. And he's also got speed. Eric Gray is more of kind of a little shifty guy. He likes to make multiple moves. And I just think Kennedy Brooks kind of get through the line and get going. It just fits, and it showed last week. 15 carries for 91 yards. So the problem with the offensive line last week was they just had penalties. I think the offensive line alone had 9 penalties on them called. So that's got to get fixed. Defense, we just can't put it all together. Defense has been playing great up to this point. Offense decided to show up. I think we had 9 offensive possessions, Oklahoma. We scored 7 of them. The only 2 we didn't, we threw an interception in the red zone one time, and then the other time ended up in the victory formation. So really we had 8 full possessions, and only one of them did not include points. So that's pretty great, looking like Oklahoma's offense should. But again, just can't put it all together. Our defense was just not great. I mean, they would kind of do the bend but don't break. You know, they forced K-State into 15 third downs. That is a lot of third downs to get them to. And they converted only 8 of them, so 50%, which is not bad. But then on 4th down, that means they had 7 fourth downs. Of those 7 fourth downs, they went for them on 5 of them and got it 4 of them. So, I mean, if you add those together, technically, like in those things, like with 3rd and 4th down combined, you know, they were about 12 for 15. Got to get off the field. That was just huge mistakes. Deuce Vaughn, granted, he is a great player, super young. He's going to be a problem in this league for a while. But our linebackers just did not find him coming out of the backfield. He didn't run the ball all that great or bad, 15 carries for 51 yards, but he had 10 catches for 104 yards. Like, he would flare out of the backfield. They'd dump it down to Deuce Vaughn. And our linebackers were nowhere, like, they were picking daisies in the goddamn end zone. I don't know what they were doing, but they were not covering Deuce Vaughn. That's for damn sure. So that's going to be an issue. And that would be a very big issue this week. This week is it's OU Texas weekend. Brian and Jimmy could tell you, just I get overly giddy. It's Christmas and my birth. It's every holiday rolled up into one. It's exciting. It's fun. It is a game that yeah, I hate losing this game. Like I get more mad when we lose to Texas than I did when we lost in the college football playoff. I know it's stupid. I mean, don't get me wrong. If we won a college football national championship, I'd be more happy about that than beating Texas. But I just get like losing this game sucks. It's one of the premier rivalries in college football. I mean, it's right up there with the game, Ohio State, Michigan, Iron Bowl, and then OU Texas. Maybe those football wise are those are the big ones. And granted, this one's mine, so I'm gonna say that this one's the best. And the top one, but they're all great. The one thing about this game, Jimmy has actually said many times that he really wants me to take him to this game, and just because it's an atmosphere you've never seen in person before anywhere. Like, if you don't know, I mean, the game is always the second Saturday of October, every single year. It is in Dallas, Texas, which is, my numbers might be a little bit off here, but it's like 204 miles from Norman and 209 miles from Austin. It's literally right smack in the middle of both of them. The Texas State Fair is going on around it. You get into the stadium, and they literally split it down the middle. Half burnt orange, shit orange. The other, the most beautiful shade of crimson that you will ever see. Every play, the crowd is going nuts one way or another. It's just wild, and it's a great, great atmosphere. And I should be down there, but like I said, I'm going to Germany, so I can't go. I'm not going to be able to go this year. Hopefully, I'll be able to watch it on my plane. So we'll see how that goes. But as for the game itself, this one's going to be very interesting. Oklahoma is 5-0, but some of these wins have not been pretty. West Virginia only scored about 17 points. Nebraska, I think we scored like 23. K-State, 37-31. Granted, one of those was a kickoff return, but still, 37-31 came down to the wire. So, haven't really been blowing people out by any means. Tulane wasn't a blowout. So, we don't really know what OU is. We know what the potential is, and you see flashes. There's some times, like I was texting Ryan during the OU Kansas State game, and I think it was like the first two possessions, OU, like game kicked off second half, you blinked, and then OU had already scored 2 touchdowns, and Ryan was just like, that's the way it's supposed to be. You guys make it look so easy. Like, just do that every single time. And then we don't. And I just, they can't put it all together. If they do, then they are going to be a force, but they just don't have to. And coming out of what Alex Grinch said after the Kansas State game is very, 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 very concerning. He was talking about his players and didn't say anything. And the comment was that some players, I guess they're just not practicing. They think that they've heard all this praise, and they just think they can just go out there go through the motions during the week, go out there on Saturday and beat the shit out of people. No, this is Division I football. This is like Power 5 football. You cannot do that. You do that, you're going to get your butt kicked. And that's pretty much what Alex Grinch said. He said something to the fact of, some of our players don't believe in practice, and that's something that we need to remedy, and that's something on the coaches. And that's really, really worrisome when you hear that about some player teams and the players. I will bet you my next 5 paychecks that is not the atmosphere coming out of Alabama and Nick Saban's teams at all. They're hungry every time they go out. So for hear that from Oklahoma, it's just not good. But this week, playing a Texas team who has one of the better weapons in college football. Bijan Robinson is just a terror to take down. He's sophomore, runs with power, got some good moves. One guy's not going to take him down. First guy's not going to take him down. So Oklahoma's going to have to fly to the ball in swarms, take him down. He's averaging 6.2 yards a carry with 652 yards. And, not only that, but he can't catch the ball when he gets the ball in space. I mean, he's dangerous. So, we saw fucking Deuce Vaughn, who, don't get me wrong, Deuce Vaughn's a very good football player, but he ain't Bijan Robinson. If Bijan Robinson gets open like that for 10 catches, it's going to be a long-ass damn day for Oklahoma. And Bijan Robinson's going to have a Heisman day. So that's the biggest thing. If I'm OU, if I'm Lincoln Riley and Alex Ridge, what I do is I pretty much stack that fucking box and make Casey Thompson, their quarterback, beat me. He is a running quarterback, can throw the ball decent. I mean, he doesn't have a cannon. Has pretty decent accuracy, but he just he's not just like, he's not a Dwayne Haskins who's like, he's at the Big Ten. He's not gonna do that. So I would just freaking try to make him beat him. Their wide receivers are not that great. Texas I think they only have like one wide receiver actually worth a damn. And just don't let Bijan beat you. That's what you got to do. Because if you let him loose, he's gonna smack you. And he's smack you good. As for Texas's defense, we're going to see what Oklahoma, this offensive line, can do because they've been struggling a little bit. Showed better against Kansas State, but Texas Texas is just, they're not that great against the run. Secondary is decent. Linebackers are okay. Defensive front, they've got the talent there. I forgot what his name is. I think it's like Alfred or something like that. A D-tackle, big son of a bitch. I think he was like one of the top defensive linemen projected for the NFL draft next year. I mean, he just isn't performing. So, we're gonna see what that defense can do because if OU can get the ball running, get Spencer Rattler going, then it could be a big day for the Sooners. If you look at what Oklahoma was at the end of last year. I've said it multiple times. I'm not the only one. I think Kirk Herbstreit said it too, that like Oklahoma could have beat anybody last year, including Alabama. Not saying they would have, but they would have given a run for money. That's how good they were playing on both sides of the football. And they limped into OU Texas last year at 1-2. Coming off a loss to Iowa State and Kansas State, people were not high on him. Spencer Rattler actually got benched in the second quarter. And then he came back in the second half, and from there on out for the rest of the season, Oklahoma was just a different football team. So, this is the game. This is like, it's always at that point about a month into the season that can kickstart your season or can send you into, oh shit, here we go. It's about that time. So, really, really looking forward to it. I hope we beat piss out of them, but it's OU Texas. Like you said, it's one of those games that it's a rivalry game. You can throw all the records out. So with that, I will kind of go real quick into our college football pick'em. Right now, after last week, last week Jimmy and I had actually the exact same picks. We both went 3-2. Ryan not so well. He went 1-4. So that puts overall record. Jimmy's at 13-12. I have clawed back into it at 12-13, one game back. Ryan has fallen to 11-14. So with that, we got 5 games. Got some very good games on the docket. We've talked about 2 of them. But one of the games, Michigan at Nebraska. Michigan -3. Nebraska week 0, I think was what they were calling it. Went out and lost to Illinois, and it just didn't look pretty. But since then, they played 2 no-name teams, and did what a Power 5 team is supposed to do and just beat the ever-loving hell out of them. Went to Norman, and granted it's OU Nebraska, which is a rivalry game, even though they haven't played it in a while, but it is a rivalry game. They played Oklahoma really, really close. And then Michigan State, who is a top 25 team, they played them very close to, I think 3-point game. So I think Nebraska is better than that loss to Illinois in week 0. Game is in Lincoln. With that, I'm still going to take Michigan. I think Michigan's pretty good this year. I don't think they're fantastic. I don't think I'm not going to pick them to win the Big Ten or get to the college football playoff, but I do see them winning 8, 9, maybe 10 games, kind of depending on how injuries fall and everything. I think they're a pretty good football team, and I got to beat Nebraska in Lincoln. Next game, Notre Dame at Virginia Tech. We've had a lot of Notre Dame games, it seems like, in our pick'em. But Notre Dame at Virginia Tech. Notre Dame 3-point favorite. Watched Virginia Tech that week 1 against North Carolina. That quarterback, I forgot his name for Virginia Tech. He's pretty fun to watch. Kind of reminds me of a little bit of Baker Mayfield and how he plays. Can move, a little squirrely in the pocket, but makes good decisions, gets real fired up, which is fun. And it's in Blacksburg. And Blacksburg, it's one of the cooler stadiums. It does not hold a lot of people, but it is one of the loudest stadiums from what I've heard. It gets pretty rocking. With this, I'm still going to go with Notre Dame. I think that as much as I did talk about it, I don't think Notre Dame is what they have been the last couple of years. That doesn't mean that I think they're a bad football team. I just don't think they're college football playoff. Virginia Tech, excuse me, sorry about that, did look really good that first game or that first week against North Carolina. And I was kind of high on them for a little bit. Thought that they could make some noise in the ACC, and since then, they went and played Mid-Tennessee State and beat them. They went to West Virginia and lost. And West Virginia, even though they played my Sooners pretty good, I don't think they're very good this year. And then they only scored 21 against Richmond, did win 21-10, but think they're gonna have to have a better outing against Notre Dame, and I think it's going to be tough sledding for them. So I'm going to take Notre Dame -3 in that game. Next, Arkansas at Ole Miss. The two teams that all three of us took to cover the spread last week, and both got the shit beat out of them by Alabama and Georgia, respectively. This game at Ole Miss -4. Arkansas can run the ball well. They're better than a lot of people think. I'm going to go with Ole Miss on this one. They're playing at home. I don't see the Lane train shit in the bed 2 weeks in a row. I think Ole Miss is going to come out ready to play. I think Matt Corral's going to come out and have a very, very good game. He's going to be fired to play after. He didn't lose the Heisman last week against Alabama, but it definitely didn't help his situation. So I think he's going to come out ready to go for that game. Next one, Penn State at Iowa. I talked obviously earlier about this one. Iowa's -2.5. I'm going to take Penn State in this game. No, it is at Iowa, and Iowa's defense has caused some problems, and Sean Clifford, as much as he's made good decisions this year, has kind of made some bad decisions and bad throws in the past. I just don't, even with those turnovers, I don't think Iowa's going to be able to move the ball against that Penn State defense. I think that defense is going to shut them down, even in short field situations. And Penn State, they've got enough playmakers. Yeah, Clifford might, throw an interception or maybe even two. in the game because Iowa's defensive backs are good at that. But Penn State's got enough playmakers that somebody's going to pop one, and they're going to get some big plays here or there, and they're going to put a few points on the board. And I just don't think Iowa's going to be able to keep up with that. So I'm taking Penn State on that one at Iowa. So finally, Oklahoma at Texas. Or versus Texas is not at. I think we are technically the away team. OU is a 3.5-point favorite. Let's get real. I'm taking Oklahoma. There's no way I'd take Texas just because fuck them. I will say it's going to be a good game. I think OU has won 4 games in a row against Texas, but I think it's either 7 or 8 of the last games have been one possession games. There hasn't been blowouts in this game. I think the difference in this game is going to be kind of like we talked about with the atmosphere. And if you look at history, just quarterbacks in their first game, their first Red River rivalry game in the Cotton Bowl, just don't do well. The atmosphere is wild. It's just hard to kind of get everything. They don't do well in this game. That's the Kansas State quarterback, Casey Thompson, who's an Oklahoma boy, is actually from Newcastle, which is, I don't know, like 10 miles west of where I'm at right now. Dad actually played quarterback in the 80s for Oklahoma, but Oklahoma didn't recruit him, so he went to Texas. He got the starting job, so kudos to that kid for doing that. And I will say also on him, I don't give kudos to Texas players very often, just because, again, fuck them. But I will say kudos to Casey Thompson for the fact of this day and age, people transfer all the time. You see it all the time. Somebody kid doesn't get the starting position, he transfers. Why? Because I didn't get his position. Didn't want to compete. Casey Thompson, Sam Ehlinger was there for 37 years. I think he was a 45-year-old senior when he left. But he's a junior. He sat and stayed there behind Sam Ehlinger, waited his time, even at the beginning of the year when Hudson Card, which I'd love for them to play him at quarterback because he's fucking trash, but he got the starting call, and Casey Thompson still sat it out, waited for his time, and now, he's got his time, and he's doing decent. But kudos to him for sitting it through, waiting for his time, competing, and doing what you're supposed to do, and actually getting the starting position. So, but he is going to be first time in this game, so I think that's going to kind of hamper him. Spencer Rattler, with the experience in the game, I think he's going to have a fantastic game. I think he's going to be fired up, ready to go. So, give me the Sooners in that game. Jim, I'm going to sign it off. I'm going to leave it to you. Give you your picks. We'll get Ryan's picks and announce them later on social media or whatever. But it could be a great game. Next week, guys, I don't know if I'll be able to do it because, like I said, I'll be in Germany and in a meeting for work, so I don't know if I'll be able to. So it might just be Jimmy and Ryan next week. So enjoy them little fucks and their dumb Big Ten thoughts. I'm kidding. I love you guys. I hope you guys do great, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. With that, great week of college football. Bitches, I'm out.
All right, now it's time for my turn to talk, finally. Thanks, Ross. You're taking forever. Jeez Louise. But we're going to start off we're going to go in the same order here. We got our rivals to the north, that team up north, and Nebraska in Lincoln. And that team up north is ranked, or is favored -3. Now, I will say, in terms of for Nebraska, they did not start off well. They lost to Illinois, not a good look. Actually, a really bad look because Illinois is bad. And but they played OU really tight, way tighter than for comfort for most Sooner fans. And Ross can atone for this one, but their defense is pretty damn good. Like in terms of rushing, they're only giving up 121 yards a game. And with that being said, and that team up north is rushing about 255 yards a game, and I agree with Ross on this one. I don't think that's going to make a difference. They can barely score. Like they're not really good on offense. Taylor Martinez is playing out of his butt, out of nowhere, right? Finally, in his 19th year at Nebraska. But in this one, I think the Wolverines go ahead and take this one. I think they beat that 3-point spread in Lincoln. I don't think Nebraska's got the dogs to be able to stop that rushing attack that the fighting khakis that I like to hear on my podcast. Uh, the Jim Harbaugh fighting khakis. Um, but yeah, I'll go over it a little bit deeper in my actual thoughts on our rivals on another day, but not today. Anyway, next game, Notre Dame at Virginia Tech. Notre Dame favored -3. Notre Dame is coming off a crushing loss against Cincy. By the way, something I saw, Notre Dame paid Cincinnati $1.2 million to come to South Bend and beat them. That's one of my favorite stats I ever hear, especially in a an upset loss like that or upset win. And shout out to the fighting Fickles, man. Them Cincinnati Bearcats. I love Luke Fickle, man. And Ross, I completely agree with Ross. They didn't look like a team that had to completely open up their entire playbook to get a shot to win the game. They were very dominant, especially in the trenches. And it looks to me like Cincy's ready to make that transition to be a Power 5 team, especially under Luke Fickle. Like that's something that hasn't happened, for crying out loud. Brian Kelly was their head coach years ago, and instead of him sticking around and trying to get into a Power 5, which at the time was not a big thing, he left to go be the head coach at Notre Dame. So it's going to be interesting to see how they continue going forward. I don't want to stick around on Cincy too much because they're not playing in this game. I really don't know much about Virginia Tech. I just know that the ACC is bad. They are not making the college playoff, for crying out loud. I believe the teams that are leading the ACC right now are Pitt and Wake Forest. Yeah, Pitt and Wake Forest. I think it's Wake Forest, actually. Wake Forest is undefeated right now. They haven't played anybody, and they're not going to win that conference. It's very likely going to be Clemson. But I'm not sold on the ACC at all, so give me Notre Dame to cover on this one. I'm going to go with that one as well. Arkansas, Ole Miss. Arkansas, again. Ross and I with the bad decisions. Like, don't take our gambling advice at all. We are not good gamblers. We thought Arkansas and Ole Miss were both going to cover, and we were both sorely mistaken. I thought Arkansas would at least be able to move the ball against Georgia. By the way, Georgia is for real. And to be honest with you, if I were going to make an argument between 1 and 2, between Georgia and Alabama, I'd probably take Georgia right now. Both of them have very good resumes overall, and they're the clear 1 and 2 teams in the country, 1A, 1B, and man, and they don't play each other regular season. If that's the way it plays out, which I'm very sure possible, I'm very certain that that's what it's going to be. It's going to be Georgia Bama. That's going to be a good game. But anyway, Arkansas coming off getting blanked, I believe, by Georgia's defense, and Ole Miss coming off of a game where they ended up coming back and scoring some extra points in garbage time. This is a tough one. I think I'm going to take Arkansas on this one because one of the things that a Lane Kiffin offense is really good at is making big plays, and Arkansas's defense is okay. They didn't look good against. I mean, they looked okay against Georgia starting off, but they just could not keep up with Georgia. Georgia's just too much of a jackhammer buzzsaw, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and take Arkansas in this one. What was the spread? Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna take Arkansas on this one. I think Arkansas is going to be able to control the ball, control the time of possession, and do enough to be able to limit Lane's offense for the big play. So yeah, give me Arkansas on this one. And now moving into Penn State and versus Iowa in Iowa City. Iowa is favored by 2.5. Now this is going to be going into my thoughts on Penn State, which I didn't really get a chance to do earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and do now. Their win last week, I went back and I watched the whole game. It was a very hard fought win. Actually, quite a bit. It seemed like a bit more of a grind than what the final score actually gave. And and Indiana is one of the, like I said, like Ross said, one of those teams that we thought were not going to be as good as they were last year, and we were both right. Um, they were overhyped in 2020, and you can see that in the way that things happened. Like Penn State made some mistakes in this game, right? They had Clifford had a pretty bad interception. It wasn't a bad interception that it completely killed a drive or anything. Oh, it killed a drive. Obviously, it's a turnover, but it didn't, seal the game for them. Which is what he's done in the past, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But there were a lot of dropped passes. I noticed a lot of drop passes. I don't know if that's necessarily a Clifford issue. I don't think Clifford's bad. I don't think he's playing. Like I said, he's playing a lot better. But I noticed a lot of drop passes that were not necessarily forced by Indiana. But, some of the time there's a bit of contention there. And their run blocking is pretty bad. Their offensive line is really good. Their O line is really good at pass blocking, and I'll go over that a little bit later. But run blocking, it was really weird. It's either their run blocking is bad, or their running backs are indecisive about what they want to do. And I'd like to get Ryan's take on this one a little bit, maybe next week. But I don't know. That's just what I saw, and that's my take on it. Again, I am not a recruiter or a scout. I don't know these things. This is just, it popped in my head as I was watching the game. But like I said, they made those mistakes, but it didn't cost them the game. Like I said, Clifford hasn't shown his way. There's really inopportune INTs are not there right now, and Indiana is not a good enough team to capitalize on those mistakes that Penn State made. And that could be something that, man, they might need to shore up against this really good Iowa team. They did much better running the ball against a physical Indiana, but again, not a good defense in Indiana. But they're really there. They're helmet to helmet. They're right there. But I honestly think that rushing could still be a bit of an issue for Penn State here. They rang up 209 yards and had 7 people with rushing attempts. Now, that's not the craziest thing if you think that this game was a blowout, but it wasn't really a blowout. It was a touchdown for the first 3 quarters, and I think Penn State got a field goal near the end of the game. So it wasn't like, it was a bit of a grind. It was a grind for them to do that. And they had 7 people with rushing attempts. Now, it's not crazy to have, if you've got really good running backs in your room and you want to, save the legs of your star, but they don't really have a big star right now. They got good guys. It's just like, again, I'd like to get Ryan's take on this one. I don't know if it's bad run blocking or if it's indecisiveness at the running back position. Their running back Lee, who I think led all the running backs, or led everybody with rushing. He did look pretty good. Was averaging about 9.3 yards per carry, but again, that could be kind of inflated. He had one 44-yard run, and prior to that, before that 44-yard run, was averaging about 4.3 yards per carry, but then didn't get much more carries after that. I take that back. He did get a lot of carries. He had, I don't know. It's weird. It's hard for me to put my finger on him when it comes down to the rushing attack. But I would say their offense is. It's hard for me to call it explosive. It's good. It's good. It's bad. It's better. I don't know. And it's against an Indiana team that's not good on defense. So I don't know. I'm saying I don't know a lot because I want to reiterate that I don't know. But these are just, bugaboos that popped in my head. The one thing that I will say about Penn State, though, is their defense is very, very, very good, very aggressive, all over the field, flying all over the place, willing to lay an absolute hammer down on a ball carrier. And I really like their defense. I'm not ready to call them great yet because they haven't really faced against a really good offense. Now, Iowa's defense, on the other hand, and this is where we're getting into this actual game now. Iowa's defense is I'm closer to them calling them great. They lead the nation in turnovers. I talked about that that stat that Ohio State's defense has right now with their 5 touchdowns. They lead Iowa in this case. However, Iowa leads the entire nation in turnovers overall with 16. And that's crazy. It's 5 games and they have 16 turnovers. That's insane. And they're only second. They're second only to Georgia in points allowed. And they've played two top 50 scoring offenses and only allowed 24 points between the two of them. And they're only averaging 11 points allowed per game. This Iowa defense is no joke. It is no joke. They are smart, experienced, and tough as nails all over the field. So it's going to be, if it's a grind for Penn State's offense on against Indiana, I think it's going to be hell for their offense against Iowa's defense in Iowa City at night. Now, with that being said, neither like Iowa's offense doesn't really blow my hair back either. Again, I don't want to call it explosive. It's serviceable. It's good. They make they're physical. I'll say that, and I'll probably say that about Penn State's defense as well. They're very physical. They're a grind offense for sure. And if you need to get that 3 yards and a cloud of dust, they'll probably be able to get it for you. And it's the same thing for Iowa's defense, Iowa's offense. Now, like I said, this is not a primetime game. However, it is going to be under the lights eventually, and it's going to be in Iowa City. And I hear, pray tell, that's pretty hard to pull a win out. However, I do like Penn State to cover in this one. It's a coin flip game. I'm going to go with Penn State on this one just because I think they are more skilled at the wide receiver position. Jahan Dotson is arguably one of the best wide receiver, not one of the best, arguably the best wide receiver in the Big Ten. I could go back and forth as to why I think Olave is better, but again, I'm biased in that sense. However, Jahan Dotson is no joke. He's very good. And as long as Clifford can go ahead and eliminate those turnovers at bad times, then it's going to be tight. The over-under on this one, I believe, was 41. And if you want to take my advice, I'd probably take the under on this one. It's going to be really tight. It's going to be really tight. And I could see Penn State driving late, hitting a field goal for the win and winning by like 1 or 2. Obviously, I'm taking Penn State to cover on this one, considering that they are Iowa's the favor. So I could see them keeping it tight like that. So I'm going to take Penn State on this one as well. Moving on to the Red River Shootout. I will not call it rivalry because that's dumb. Shootout is way cooler, so I'm going to go with that. Last game this week. OU Texas in Dallas. OU is favored by 3.5. And Ross talked about some players for OU thinking their crap doesn't stink, and to be honest with you, this is the game for them to absolutely refocus, forget all that, and just play to the end of the whistle because it's the Red River Shootout, right? Ross said it himself. It's the environment. It's the game day experience, you know. It's Dallas, Texas State Fair. It's all right there, and he's correct. I've said it multiple times. That is one of the rivalry games that I would love to go to, and I agree. It's right up there with the best rivalry games in the entire country, in the history of college football. And I'm a purist, and I love tradition, and that is a tradition that's been going on for over 100 years. And to talk about the two teams in general, OU is having some issues on defense. Like I said, hopefully they will be able to get that fixed out, worked out for Sooner fans' sanity and Ross's sanity in general while being on a plane. Um, Texas is all offense. OU's offense is still really good, even though it's not up to previous OU standards. It's still really good. Spencer Rattler is very good. Um, if they can get that rushing attack going and steady, then this game should be a bit of a barn burner in that neither team's defense are great right now. I think OU's defense has improved. I like their scheme. Uh, Alex Grinch, he's got a good scheme there, but it's going to come down to execution. And right now, Texas's offense is ranked sixth in scoring and averaging 473 yards a game. And Ross brought him up. It all centers around the almost Buckeye, Bijan Robinson. I don't need to talk anymore about him. Ross said everything. The kid's a beast. And both teams are offense oriented. You having issues on defense, but and I don't think a field goal decides on this one. I'm going to go with Ross on this one in that this is the first game, a first time starter playing doesn't do well, and I'm going to go with that one. And I think OU is going to cover that 3.5 on this one. Give me, actually, I think they're probably going to win by like a touchdown and a field goal. And maybe, hopefully, that for Ross, that OU defense out of nowhere, like maybe a late drive to try and get it close to beat that spread. OU gets an interception or a turnover or something like that. But anyway, that's all we got this week. Kind of quick, short, fast. Again, hopefully we can get all three of us in on a call. It's not going to be happening this next week because Ross is not going to be here. Hopefully I can get on there with Ryan. That'd be great. We can get on there and actually, talk shit to each other a little bit more. But thank you for checking in. Give us tell your friends if you're here, if you're listening, and you're not one of us actually listening to hear how it sounds. Tell your friends, share it everywhere. Check us out on Facebook at the Boom Buck and Blue podcast, YouTube, anywhere, pretty much anywhere you can get your podcast, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, all the good stuff. Give us a follow on Instagram. Just look up the Boom Buck and Blue podcast, or Boom Buck and Blue, and give us a follow. Again, thank you so much for coming in. I've been getting memories popping up, how we've been doing this a little over a year now. And I love it. It's been a lot of fun, and we're going to keep making them as long as you guys keep listening. All 9 of you, I think we have right now. So, hey, it's another week of football, college football. Let's watch some games, crack some beers. Well, you can't. I won't. Bye.